Then Bildad the Shuhite replies. This is the second guy. This is the guy who's going to be acting as God's defense attorney. Stop that. How long will you say such things? Your words are a blustering wind. Does God pervert justice? Does the Almighty pervert what is right? When your children sinned against him, he gave them over to the penalty of their sin. So he's saying pretty clearly, the fault is with you and your kids. They did something wrong. They got wiped out for it. But if you will look to God and plead with the Almighty, if you are pure and upright, even now he will rouse himself on your behalf and restore you to your rightful place. It's too late for your kids. Whatever sins they were committing when they had their parties and their carousing together, maybe, who knows what they were doing, they've been punished for that. They're gone. But you still have a chance. You're still alive. Your beginnings will seem humble. So prosperous will your future be. So for all the stuff he had before, that's going to seem humble compared to what he's going to get later on. That actually ends up being right. So the result ends up being what Bildad predicts here, but Bildad's point of view is not correct. Ask the former generations and find out what their fathers learned. For we were born only yesterday and know nothing, and our days on earth are but a shadow. Will they not now instruct you and tell you? Will they not bring forth words from their understanding? So he's saying, ask the people who know these things what's going on. You know, we're not ignorant. Our fathers have experienced this kind of stuff. We know from their experiences and the wisdom they pass on to us about what happens in the world. Can papyrus grow tall where there is no marsh? Can reeds thrive without water? While still growing and uncut, they wither more quickly than grass. Such is the destiny of all who forget God. So perishes the hope of the godless. What he trusts in is fragile. What he relies on is a spider's web. He leans on the web, but it gives way. He clings to it, but it does not hold. He is like a well-watered plant in the sunshine, spreading its roots over the garden. Spreading its shoots over the garden. It entwines its roots around a pile of rocks, so its soil is shallow. It shoots up quick, but its soil is shallow. And so it's going to be stunted in its growth eventually, before long. And looks for a place among the stones. That's very similar to the parable of the sower, one of the types of the seeds. When Jesus talks about the type of the seed that's being sown on different kinds of soil it lands on, one of the kinds of soil is a rocky soil that shoots up quickly, but because the soil gets in the way, it cannot take root and withers away. When it is torn from its spot, that place disowns it and says, I never saw you. Surely its life withers away, and from the soil other plants grow. Surely God does not reject a blameless man, or strengthen the hands of evildoers. He will yet fill your mouth with laughter, and your lips with shouts of joy. Your enemies will be clothed in shame, and the tents of the wicked will be no more. So your children sinned and are gone. Their punishment has come upon them. They're out of the picture. Their time is past, but you're still alive, so you still have a chance. Turn to God, and he will restore you. Then Job replied, Indeed, I know that this is true. But how can a mortal be righteous before God? Though one wished to dispute with him, he could not answer him 1 time out of 1,000. His wisdom is profound. His power is vast. Who has resisted him and come out unscathed? He moves mountains without their knowing it, and overturns them in his anger. He strikes the earth from its place, and makes its pillars tremble. Now, the pillars of the earth could refer to 2 different things. It could refer to the mountains, being the pillars of the earth holding up the sky. It could also be referring to the pillars that are underneath the earth that hold up the earth. Both of these concepts are part of the ancient worldview, and both of them may be now, neither of them is scientifically accurate, but both of them could be reflected here in what Job is saying. Again, we shouldn't pay too much detail to any one verse, especially in this poetic section, which is what Job is. But that is one of the indications in the book of Job that speaks to an ancient cosmology or an ancient view of the world that is not scientifically accurate, does not line up with what we know scientifically, objectively, immeasurably about the world. The sky does not sit on the mountains, and the earth does not sit on pillars. So whatever these pillars are is a figurative expression that relates some kind of understanding that Job had about the world that we don't need to have about the world. And remember, Job was not an Israelite, and the whole point of this book is to demonstrate how he and his friends are ignorant of God. So that's not really a problem. Now, Job will say some things later that are accurate according to the way the world works as we know it, but not everything he says is. He speaks to the sun, and it does not shine. He seals off the light of the stars. He alone stretches out the heavens, and there's, again, that idea of the skies being something that can be stretched out, a tent or a canopy or a metal sheet of some kind. The idea of the sky, we talked about it way back in Genesis, about the ancient belief the sky was solid, and there's not a clue about that. So he alone stretches out the heavens and treads on the waves of the sea. He is the maker of the Bear and Orion, those are constellations, of course, the Pleiades and the constellations of the south. He performs wonders that cannot be fathomed, miracles that cannot be counted. When he passes me, I cannot see him. When he goes by, I cannot perceive him. If he snatches away, who can stop him? Who can say to him, what are you doing? God does not restrain his anger. Even the cohorts of Rahab cowered at his feet. Rahab is another mythical sea monster, similar to Leviathan. May even be referring to the same thing, I don't know. But just as we read about Leviathan earlier, we read about Rahab now. Both of these things refer to the idea of ancient forces of chaotic evil that dwell in the world that God has to deal with. So even the cohorts of Rahab cowered at his feet, the forces of chaos. How then can I dispute with him? How can I find words to argue with him? Though I were innocent, I could not answer him. I could only plead with my judge for mercy. Even if I summoned him and he responded, which he will, by the way, at the end of the book, I do not believe he would give me a hearing. He would crush me with a storm and multiply my wounds for no reason. I can't do anything. I can't argue with this guy. I can't win an argument against God. Even if he can, which he will do, he will come to get Job. Even if he comes to me in a storm, he'll just crush me in the storm. It's not like I have a chance of pleading my case in front of him. He would not let me regain my breath, but would overwhelm me with misery. If it is a matter of strength, he is mighty. And if it is a matter of justice, who will summon him? Even if I were innocent, my mouth would condemn me. If I were blameless, it would pronounce me guilty. All Job ultimately is going to be able to do when he does see God at the end of the book is just admit how wrong he was. He's not going to try to defend himself or explain himself in front of God when the time actually comes forward. Although I am blameless, I have no concern for myself. I despise my own life. It is all the same. That is why I say he destroys both the blameless and the wicked. When a scourge brings sudden death, like a plague, like a pandemic, like COVID, he mocks the despair of the innocent. When a land falls into the hands of the wicked, he blindfolds its judges. If it's not he, then who? If God isn't the one doing this, then who is? No one's mightier than he is. My days are swifter than a runner. They fly around without a glimpse of joy. They skim past like boats of papyrus, like eagles swooping down on their prey. If I say, I will forget my complaint, I will change my expression and smile. I'm just going to force my way to smile through all of this. If I say I do want to do that, I still dread all my sufferings. For I know that you, he's talking, I think he's talking to the guys around him. He may be talking to God, I'm not sure. Will not hold me innocent. So no matter what I try to do, if I try to act normal, if I try to act like I'm content and satisfied, I know I'm still going to be judged and looked at as guilty no matter what. Since I am already found guilty, why should I struggle in vain? Even if I wash myself with soap, or snow, according to my footnotes down here, and my hands with washing soda, you would plunge me into a slime pit so that even my clothes would detest me. I think he's talking to God. I don't know exactly. He's using the you, so I'm not sure if he's talking to God or to his friends. He's been talking about God. I'm not sure if he switched to talking to God or what. Maybe he's talking to the guy standing in front of him. I don't know. He is not a man like me that I might answer him, and that we might confront each other in court. If only there were someone to arbitrate between us, to lay his hand upon us both, someone to remove God's rod from me, so that his terror would frighten me no more. Then I would speak up without fear of him. But as it stands now, I cannot. We know who that someone would be, of course. Job didn't know that. Job doesn't realize that he is expressing a wish for a Messiah. He is expressing a wish for Jesus. Like what the function that Jesus will end up performing down the road. He doesn't know that. He is expressing his desire for someone to come between him and God and arbitrate, mediate between them. And he doesn't realize, he's probably thinking of an angel or something along those lines. But he doesn't realize that what he's really speaking about is a longing for Christ. A man a God who will become man and will step in between man and God and reconcile the two estranged parties. This is actually a very prominent theme in the book of Job. Job is going to express his desire for this mediator numerous times. And that, of course, ultimately points to Christ. Because Jesus will end up being the one who will do this for us. I loathe my very life. Therefore I will give free rein to my complaint, and speak out in the bitterness of my soul. I will say to God, do not condemn me, but tell me what charges you have against me. Now, Job doesn't realize that he's not being punished for anything that he's actually done. The other guys don't realize that either. They're all kind of assuming that he's being punished for something. They're all assuming that. The three guys are trying to get him to admit what that is. Their goal in these conversations is to get Job to admit what he's done wrong and confess of that. Job doesn't think he's done anything wrong. At least nothing to the degree that deserves all this. So he wants God to tell him what he's done wrong. Okay, so the other three guys are trying to get Job to confess what he's done wrong. Job doesn't see anything that he's done wrong, so he's trying to get God to tell him what he's done wrong. But they're all assuming that Job is being beset by difficulties as punishment for something that he's done wrong. Like that's the assumption that they all have. Does it please, so do not condemn me, but tell me what charges you have against me. Does it please you to oppress me, to spurn the work of your hands, while you smile on the schemes of the wicked? Oh, that's a pretty serious accusation. So he's, I'm doing everything that I can to uphold your honor, God, and you've done all this to me. Does it please you to do this to me? Does it make you happy to make me suffer like this, and then smile on the schemes of the wicked? What's the point? What's going on here, God? Do you have the eyes of flesh? Do you see as a mortal sees? Are your days like those of a mortal, or your years like those of a man? That you must search out my faults and probe after my sin, though you know that I am not guilty, and that no one can rescue me from your hand? Your hands shaped me and made me. Will you now turn and destroy me? Remember that you molded me like clay. Will you now turn me to dust again? Did you not pour me out like milk and curdle me like cheese, clothe me with skin and flesh, and knit me together with bones and sinews? You gave me life and showed me kindness, and in your providence you watched over my spirit. But this is what you concealed in your heart, and I know that this was in your mind. If I sinned, you wouldn't be watching me and would not let my offense go on. So he went to all this trouble. He knit me together, he sewed me together, he gave me flesh, skin, and bones, and blood, and organs, and all these things, and the spirit that animates me. And he did all this just so that he could find some reason to fault me. Just so he could look at it, he could watch me, he could examine me every moment, observe every step, and as soon as I did something, he was going to blast me for it. If I am guilty, woe to me. Even if I am innocent, I cannot lift my head, for I am full of shame and drowned in my affliction. If I hold my head high, you stalk me like a lion, and again display your awesome power against me. You bring new witnesses against me, and increase your anger toward me. Your forces come upon me, wave upon wave. Why then did you bring me out of the womb? So there he goes back to that idea again. That was where he started. That's where he first, way back at the beginning. Naked I came from my womb, naked I will depart. My mother's womb. It's like he started with that thought, and now he's gone back to it again. What's the point? Why did you make me go through all this? I wish I had died before any eyes saw me. If only I had never come into being, or had been carried straight from the womb to the grave. Are not my few days almost over? Turn away from me so I can have a moment's joy before I go to the place of no return, to the land of gloom and deep shadow, to the land of deepest night, of deep shadow and disorder, where even the light is like darkness. So he's hamming it up. He's talking a lot about how awful this underworld is, the grave, the land of the dead, Sheol. But he still wants to go there. It's going to be dark and gloomy and shadowy and disorderly, no light, no return. But he still prefers that over this. Or at least he says so. He thinks so.